Three experts examined the same Submariner. The first was a gray market dealer with 20 years in the business, a man who had personally authenticated thousands of Rolexes. The second was a watchmaker trained directly by Rolex, someone whose job every single day is to open these cases and know what he is looking at. The third ran one of the most respected third-party authentication services in North America. All three passed it. The watch was a Superclone, assembled in a factory in Shenzhen. It cost its manufacturer roughly $400 to produce. It was then sold through a channel you have absolutely used or seriously considered at a price of $14,000, roughly in line with what a genuine Submariner 126610LN was trading for on the secondary market at the time. Nobody in that transaction knew. That is the most important watch story of 2026. What a superclone is now. To understand what is happening inside the legitimate dealer network, you need to understand what a modern superclone actually is, because the word fake no longer covers it. The watches coming out of facilities like Clean Factory, VS Factory, and the Noob operation in Shenzhen are not the stitched-together counterfeits of a decade ago. They are manufactured on tooling that mirrors genuine Swiss production. The steel is the same 904L alloy Rolex uses. The weight lands within a fraction of a gram of the real thing. Case-back engravings are laser-etched to exact specification. The rehout engraving, that inner ring on the dial that carries the Rolex name and serial number in fine text, is rendered to a tolerance that previously served as a reliable authentication tell. The serial numbers are real, pulled from genuine watches that have moved through gray market channels and been stripped for their documentation. This is not about spotting a slightly off bezel font or a misaligned Cyclops lens. Those tells are gone. What the superclone industry has accomplished, quietly and without press releases, is the systematic elimination of the visual gap. What remains is the movement gap, and even that is narrowing faster than the Swiss industry will admit publicly. The latest generation of clone movements have passed magnetic resistance tests. Some have cleared COSC certification thresholds. COSC stands for Contrôle Officiel Suisse des Chronomètres, the independent body that certifies a movement running within -4 to +6 seconds per day. Rolex holds its own movements to a tighter internal standard, the superlative chronometer designation, which requires -2 to +2 seconds per day. Clone movements are now being benchmarked against both the caliber 3235, which Rolex uses across its Datejust and Submariner lines, and the caliber 4130, which powers the Daytona, are the two references being most aggressively targeted. This is the environment in which authentication now operates. The supply chain nobody is talking about. Here is where the story becomes uncomfortable for everyone in the official market. The conventional narrative about superclones has always been straightforward. They are made in China, sold through shady gray market websites to buyers chasing status without the price tag, and occasionally seized by customs. The industry message to consumers has remained consistent for years. Buy from authorized dealers, use the CPO program, stick to trusted resellers. That is your protection. That narrative is now structurally false. The pathway from a Shenzhen production floor to a display case at a reputable gray market dealer is shorter than anyone with a stake in this market will publicly acknowledge. Here is how it works. A superclone enters the resale market as a private sale, often between individuals on platforms like Chrono24 or through enthusiast communities. The seller is frequently not attempting to deceive anyone because the seller genuinely believes they purchased a real watch. It arrived with original box and papers. The serial number corresponds to a genuine Rolex registered years earlier. Because no centralized serial number registry exists that private sellers or independent dealers can check against in real time, that correspondence is treated as confirmation. That watch then enters what dealers quietly call the resale chain. It changes hands once, then again. Each transaction adds another layer of provenance. By the time it has moved through 3 private owners, it carries a purchase history, seller feedback, and documentation that is entirely indistinguishable from legitimate. A reputable gray market dealer then acquires it in good faith. Authentication follows the same procedure applied to every other watch in their inventory: visual examination, weight confirmation, and movement inspection through the caseback. A superclone built to the current generation standard passes all three. The watch is now inside the legitimate market. The experts who did not catch it. The authentication community is not running from this problem. Some of the most respected voices in the space have started speaking about it directly, and what they are saying should concern anyone considering a pre-owned purchase. Several leading authentication services operating in North America and Europe, including third-party specialists such as Watch CSA and Becker Times Authentication Division, have begun publicly acknowledging what was previously discussed only in private. The conclusion they are reaching is consistent. Certain high-generation superclones now require full movement disassembly to authenticate with confidence. Visual inspection alone is no longer sufficient for the highest risk references. The references drawing the most concern are the Submariner, the GMT Master 2, the Daytona, and the Datejust. Together, those four models account for approximately 70% of all pre-owned Rolex transactions globally. On the secondary market right now, a genuine Submariner 1266 Cyro LN trades around $12,500. A Daytona in steel commands significantly more. Those are the price points that make producing a $400 superclone worth every cent of investment. Gray market dealers in major resale markets have reported a significant rise in what the trade now calls blind buys, watches acquired from private sellers or other dealers that subsequently failed internal movement inspection. The volume of these incidents is not published anywhere because publishing it would crater market confidence. But dealers speaking off the record describe the same pattern. This is not a rare occurrence, it is becoming routine. And then there is the certified pre-owned question, which sits at the center of all of this. Rolex's certified pre-owned program, administered through authorized dealers including Watches of Switzerland and the former Bucherer network, is the single most trusted authentication signal available to consumers right now. Certified pre-owned certification means a Rolex-trained technician has examined the watch, checking the movement against the known specifications of caliber 3235 or 4130, verifying the superlative chronometer standard, confirming rehaut engraving depth, examining Cyclops lens clarity, and declared it genuine. For most buyers, certified pre-owned is the point at which doubt is supposed to end. The vulnerability inside that program is not the technicians. They are skilled, and they are operating in good faith. The vulnerability is volume and process. A high-traffic certified pre-owned operation moves through dozens of watches in a day. The examination is thorough within its defined scope, but it is not unlimited, and the current generation of superclones has been specifically engineered to pass precisely the checks that a time-pressured technician runs as standard. This is not a conspiracy. It is the logical endpoint of an industry that has spent 3 years openly designing its products to defeat authentication. What the industry is doing, Rolex has not issued a public statement about authentication failure rates in the pre-owned market. That silence is its own kind of data point. Work is underway on a proprietary digital authentication system, one that ties an encrypted identifier to each movement at the point of manufacture. Based on reporting from Europastar and multiple industry sources, with the topic drawing significant attention at Watches and Wonders 2026, that system is expected to begin rolling out on new production watches within the next 18 to 24 months. For new watches, this will eventually close the gap. For the existing pre-owned market, it changes nothing at all. The superclones already circulating in legitimate resale channels are not going to be recalled. The watches sitting on buyers' wrists right now, watches those buyers paid full price for from trusted sources, are not going to send an alert. The authentication gap exists in the present tense, not the future. The gray market, which accounts for an estimated 40% of all luxury watch transactions worldwide, operates almost entirely outside the protections that Rolex's coming digital system will eventually provide. For the foreseeable future, those buyers are on their own. What this means for you. If you are in the market for a pre-owned Rolex right now, the rule that has governed pre-owned watch buying for 20 years, find a trusted source and rely on their expertise, is no longer sufficient by itself. Trusted sources are being fooled. That is not a criticism of those sources. It is a description of a gap between the tools available and the product those tools are now being asked to authenticate. Full movement disassembly and examination remains the only method that reliably distinguishes a current generation superclone from a genuine watch. Very few resale transactions include that step because it adds cost, adds time, and until recently was considered entirely unnecessary. At the prices Rolex commands on the secondary market right now, that examination is no longer optional. For any pre-owned Submariner, Daytona, or GMT Master above $10,000, it is the admission price to owning something with confidence. The industry built its trust architecture on the assumption that visual inspection was enough. The factories in Shenzhen have invalidated that assumption, and the architecture has not been rebuilt yet. The last line of defense has fallen. Most of the people who depended on it do not know that yet.